millions of people, reincarnation is an accepted fact. They believe when they die, their souls move on to return in another body. We are making huge strides in unlocking the secrets of memory and brain. But for scientists, the soul is a difficult concept.
It's very hard to scientifically prove anything that is related to what is a soul.
Can this child really be the dead wife of this man? And the mother of a boy her own age? Can this girl carry the spirit of a dead teenager? How can they remember their past lives?
But I do believe that reincarnation should be taken seriously.
There are many strange stories of people claiming to remember earlier lives that at first glance defy explanation. Benares, northern India. The holy river Mother Ganges flows through the city. Hinduism is one of the world's oldest religions, with millions of followers. For them, life does not always end in death. Along the banks, funeral pyres for the dead. Only immersing the ashes in the river will release the soul from the cycle of rebirth and suffering in this world. Karma is the Hindu law that controls reincarnation and our places on the ladder of existence. Good deeds will be rewarded, bad punished, giving everyone a chance to redeem themselves. The priests believe it offers comfort.
जैसे सूर्य है, सूर्य की किरणें अनंत हैं. अब वो सूर्य
Who can count the sunbeams? The sun is a source of endless beams. There are so many souls. The light begins to die, but their souls come back again and again.
वैसे ही परमात्मा से अनंत आत्मा है.
Thousands of tales of reincarnation exist in India. On the 11th of December 1926, a girl is born in Delhi. For Hindus, she was to become living proof of their beliefs. Her name was Shanti Devi. Until the age of 4, she never spoke. When she did, her first words were explosive. She told her mother that her home was not in Delhi, but in a town called Matra, 140 kilometers away. She had lived there in her past life. Her name was Lugdi, and her husband was a man called Kiranat Chobe. Shanti was able to describe the town in astonishing detail, even though she had never been there. She could even remember how she died, giving birth to her son 7 years earlier. For 2 years, Shanti's parents dismissed her words as fantasy. In the end, her mother decided she could no longer ignore her daughter's vivid descriptions. So one of Shanti's uncles traveled to Matra to investigate her claims. What he found seemed to confirm her story. There was a clothmaker living in the town. His wife Lugdi had died in childbirth the year before Shanti Devi was born. His name was Kedarnath Chobe. Was Shanti his wife reborn? Dr. Ravat is one of India's leading specialists on reincarnation. He has spent much of his life retracing Shanti's story and recalls Kedarnath's first encounter with her.
when Kedarnath came to Delhi, and there were a lot of people very curious to know whether Shanti had been talking all nonsense or there is truth in it. But when in the morning Kedarnath very openly and clearly stated that I am 100% convinced she is Dugdi, the whole thing spread like fire, and hundreds and hundreds of people used to come to see this child.
In the 1930s, India was in turmoil as the country struggled for independence from British rule. Hindus and Muslims clashed violently. Mahatma Gandhi, a Hindu, was seeking a peaceful solution. He moved Devi's story center stage in the wider struggle.
At the same time, India has many people from many other regions also. They said that it is, the whole story is a propaganda done by Hindus in order to promote their religion.
In 1935, Gandhi asked for Shanti Devi to be brought to him.
Shanti told me when she was narrating her incidences that she still remembered, even at the age of 62, that she felt the bones of Gandhi when she was sitting in his lap.
For Hindus, she was living proof that their laws controlled human destiny. By 1935, Shanti's story was a national sensation, and Gandhi appointed a commission to investigate her claims. A team of politicians, scientists and journalists took Shanti to Mathura. Their aim was to test the 9-year-old's knowledge of the town and people. Would Shanti pass? When the team arrived in Mathura, they were astonished by how much the child knew. She answered many questions correctly, although several she got wrong. But she was able to describe the holy gates of the city before they reached them. She could point out new buildings and streets, which she claimed did not exist in the past. Shanti's brother, Viresh Narain, accompanied her on the journey. He remembers it as if it were yesterday.
She told the way.
She showed the way. You have to go that way. And now they're like that. And she guided the team to the home of her previous life.
Outside the clothmaker's shop, Shanti Devi met Namanda Bay, who would have been her sister in her past life.
She recognized me straight away. There were so many people, they were pushing her away from me, but she recognized everything. She knew of each lane, where it led to, knew every tenant, knew where they lived. She recognized the cobbler, the washer, all of them.
The trip culminated in a dramatic encounter. 9-year-old Shanti met 10-year-old Navneet, the son she died giving birth to. Mother and son meet for the first time.
They pointed at me and asked Shanti Devi, "Who is that?" And she said, "That is my son." "How did you recognize him?" She said, "My soul has recognized his soul," and she began to cry.
For the commission, this was final proof. Their report concluded that if science and religion could meet on a common ground together, they could unlock the miracle of reincarnation. The case is of worldwide importance, with direct effect on mankind. We ask all scientists to help us find a conclusion. How could science contribute to such an unscientific debate? In America, the McGovern Institute for Brain Research tries to unlock the mysteries of human memory. Nobel Prize winner Professor Philip Sharp heads up the unit.
The soul in many cases has an implication related to religion or good and bad, and a existence beyond the physical organism. And it's very hard to scientifically prove anything that is related to what is a soul.
In 1987, Shanti Devi died at the age of 62. 4 days before her death, she gave her final interview to Dr. Avat.
What do you expect from your future?
I think that I will reach salvation in the future. Everybody has to go through the highs and lows of birth and rebirth. With this life, the cycle ends. I will go to God in my next life.
Hundreds of scholars, investigators, critics, writers, journalists went to her, questioned her, to the extent that right from almost the day she started talking about past life, till I know of the 4 days before her death, when I had last interviewed her.
This is the work of God. God made me his tool. This is all God's play. And the world is the stage. And we all dance as he wants us to.
It says in the Holy Scriptures that reincarnation exists. My mother proved it and showed everyone that there is such a thing as rebirth. She was living proof, and all those people who didn't believe in it had to accept that there is a reincarnation.
The University of Charlottesville in Virginia. Here in the Personality Studies Division, modern science is coming head-to-head with the mystical beliefs of reincarnation. The unit tries to establish hard evidence of the truths behind the stories such as Devi's. They use the information to assess the potential applications in understanding the human personality. Its founder is psychologist Professor Ian Stevenson. For over 40 years he has travelled the world tracking down those children who claim to be able to recall a past life. Over this long period, he believes that a significant pattern has emerged in many countries.
Individually, the cases of these little children seemed weak, but when you looked at them as a whole, they showed me certain uniformities. Very young age of the children, 2 to 5, and then the tendency for the children to forget when they were 7 or 8.
What began as a personal interest developed into a fully funded research project, which is still struggling to find the truth. There are over 2,000 cases of alleged rebirth from around the world in Stevenson's filing system, but incontrovertible proof is hard to pin down.
Well, my conclusion so far is that for the strongest cases, reincarnation is the best, but not the only explanation. We don't have any perfect case. They all have some flaw. And so I've never claimed we have anything like a proof of reincarnation. But I do believe that reincarnation should be taken seriously as a possible explanation.
Stevenson cross-checks all available details of the children's stories, but he also looks for physical signs, traces of the violent deaths from which many of the children claim to have died.
A small number of the birthmarks are very similar in appearance to birthmarks that nearly everybody has, what we call melanocytic nevi. But most of the birthmarks that I and my colleagues have described are much more substantial.
Stevenson has collected over 600 of these cases. A little girl from Turkey. She claims to remember that her husband killed her in her former life by cutting her head off. Across her throat, she has a faint red birthmark. There's a little boy from Sri Lanka. He says he was killed by a shot in the head, and this is the wound. And a boy from India who died in a car crash that crushed his leg.
In many cases, we've been able to verify the existence of the wounds with post-mortem reports, which are very precious, and we need more of that.
In order to gather more evidence and follow up leads, Stevenson has installed a global network of researchers on standby around the world. In 2003, in southern Turkey, a curious case came to light. German psychologist Dr. Jürgen Keil went to investigate.
Under circumstances that I would call good, the child was able to give me information that, in my opinion, could not possibly have come from her current life. I would therefore call it a case that is above average.
In 1998, a young Turkish girl, Atra Kapi, died of brain injuries in a car crash in her home of Antakya. "28 days later, in another Turkish village not far away, Demet Yildirim was born.
This child had a birthmark that has now faded, and we certainly can't say that it was definitely connected to the accident, but it is the same place where Atra was fatally injured.
At the family home, Kyle meets Demet and her grandmother Kezben Yildirim. She is absolutely convinced by her grandchild's story.
Demet said from the beginning that she had two mothers, and she even knew the name of her mother from her past life, Lemia. "Why do you have two mothers?" I asked her, but she insisted on it, and the first time she even said her name, Lemia. I knew a Lemia. She was a tailor, and I had my clothes made by her. I had not mentioned any of this to Demet, and all of a sudden she asked, "Grandma, what is sewing?" I was astounded, by Allah, and asked myself how on earth she would have known about that.
So is the child playing the part, or are her memories real? Through a translator, Kyle questions her about relatives from her previous life.
Can she remember any other name? Başka isim hatırlıyor musun? Okan, Hakan, Lamia. Başka hiç isim hatırlıyor musun? Ha?
Sadece Ayfer.
Only Ayfer. Kimdi Ayfer? Kimdi Ayfer?
Ayfer benim kardeşim.
Ayfer was my sister.
Demet's mother also believes.
We were in a group of about 20 people, traveling in a bus to the seaside. My husband was driving. My brother Mehmet was with us as well. Demet was sitting in between us. 10 kilometers before Çevlik, she suddenly got very upset. She was shaking and crying. My brother put his arm around her and asked what on earth was going on. Her voice was trembling and she was terrified. She said, "This is where we had the accident."
Her mother supports the little girl, and Demet is sticking to her story.
Ben çevirdim.
Sen de nereden biliyorsun Çevlik'te öldüğünü? Ha? Kim dedi sana Çevlik'te öldü? She said she died in Çevlik. So I asked her, who told you that you died in Çevlik? She said, I know myself.
Lawyer Champi Ransom to examine his methods and findings.
I worked there for about 3 years, 70 to about 73, but less than 3 years. And it was interesting because we were studying whether these amazing phenomena were actually real, and I think trying to study it in a serious way, not just accepting it or rejecting it, but trying to find out whether there was any evidence for these things.
Ransom examined the method and conditions under which children were interviewed. He analyzed how objective the questioning had been to see if they could have been given subtle cues and hints. But for Stevenson, the idea that our personalities could stretch back beyond one lifetime raises curious questions about human behavior. Conventional psychology believes our personalities are shaped by genetic and environmental influences, by nature and nurture. Stevenson believes there are children whose behavior can't be explained by either, and whose memories must be inherited in some way.
I think there must be some vehicle in which conveys the memories of events and the habits of behavior and the birthmarks and birth defects when these occur. They can't, I think, just occur from one to the other instantly. There must be some intermediate carrier.